Hi there, it's Francois here from the Green Homestead. In one of the previous videos, the comments, one of the viewers asked me a question to give you a tour of my garden, of what I do in my garden. So this all thanks Graham for that question. I appreciate that, and I would really suggest that you give me more questions as I make videos like this. Please ask me more questions, then I can go into more depth of the things that I've done here, things that I achieve and so on, and things that you'd like to get my opinion on, and what I'm doing here on my homestead and especially in my garden. So what I'll cover in this video is I'll cover a couple of subjects. So this will be a fairly lengthy video, and I'll cover stuff like infrastructure. I'll cover what type of crops I'm planting, how did I claim some of this wild nature to transform it into gardens and so on. I'll cover compost, little bit of compost on compost, and soil preparation. So yeah, let's get started. So let's start with the infrastructure, and I'll end with at the end with the soil preparation. So for infrastructure, over there you'll see the water tank that I have, and just next to it is a little brick building. Inside that brick building is the well. In South Africa we call a well a borehole. So it is a small hole that is about 10 inches in diameter and so on, and we pump water from there into the well, into the tank, the water storage tank, and from there it's distributed to the rest of our small holding or our little farm. So this is the first part of the infrastructure that I'd like to highlight. Secondly is the irrigation. We irrigate mainly by hand. As you can see over there is just a normal garden hose that we use to irrigate our garden. Secondly is the shade cloth structure. So I didn't build it. When we bought the property, it was here already. It was covered in weeds and so on. So I'll get to that a little bit later on weed control also in this video. One of the biggest benefits that I found was the protection it gives the plants against the elements, against hail especially. A couple of weeks ago we had a terrible hailstorm, and it damaged my corn over here. You can see over there, you can see some corn, and it was damaged very badly by the hailstorm. But the crops inside, the veggies inside the shade cloth wasn't damaged at all. Okay, the shade cloth structure got damaged quite a bit, so let me quickly show it to you, but I'll repair that soon. So as you can see over here, the shade cloth is hanging pretty badly because there was a huge weight of hail here on top of it. This piece of metal should support this piece of shade cloth, and it broke because of the weight of the hail. So I'll just fix it after this video. The downside of a shade cloth structure like this is that bees and other pollinators can't get into the garden, and so we have to pollinate by hand. But one of the pluses is that birds cannot get in here, and I don't feed the birds with my veggies. Okay, next I want to move on to just a fenced off area. You can see this area is just fenced off, and here at the bottom I have a smaller type of fence. This keeps out, this keeps out rabbits, porcupines, my chickens, antelopes, and so on. So they don't share my crops with me. Okay, right, so when I move over here, so now next I'm going to show you what I do. So this is just normal wild grass and weeds growing here, and this section over here is where I'm reclaiming, or not reclaiming, preparing an area for this next growing season, for next spring. So you can see my chickens are running around here and enjoying themselves. So what I've done is I've got a contact at local stables, and I get horse manure and horse bedding, and I just dumped a lot of horse manure on this piece of what do you call it, nature, wild nature in South Africa, where some call it veld. So I dumped it here, and it kills most of the wheat, so it smothers most of the weeds, and it kills it, so it also feeds the ground underneath, where the earthworms now can start adding organic matter into the soil. Right, if this one over here is a failed attempt to do the composting. That was a failed attempt, mostly because I didn't keep it wet. And this here is my modified Johnson Sioux bioreactors, which you can find in a different video. I'll just go and look on my channel. You'll find the link to that videos, how I made it, and my comments on it. Right, so for now it's this tree over here. Now I'll move over to the type of crops that I have in my garden. This tree over here is a pecan nut tree, so I have 5 of these young trees in my orchard. So in about 5 years they will start producing. Over here I've planted 2 fig trees. This is a young fig tree, and over there is a young fig tree, and in a different area also I'm preparing a hole to plant another fig tree. Okay, I'm quickly going to pause the video, and I'll move over to one of the fruit plants that I have here in my garden. Okay, so here I'm back, and I'm literally at the back of my house. So what we have here is a cactus called a prickly pear. It's got the most amazing fruit in it. So it just grew wild in here. It was a small little plant when we first bought the property, but as you can see over here is fruit all over the plant. So I intend to propagate this thing into a fence at the front of our property, so to have a big orchard, single line orchard of this prickly pear in the front of our property. So over here on our property we have 2 mulberry trees, which is also awesome. I didn't plant it, I got it here, but this is now already past their productive time, so it's only leaves right now. Okay, I'll pause it again. I'll take you to a different area on the farm. Okay, so here is one of the peach trees on my farm, and all of the peach trees, these peach trees, I haven't received a single harvest from them yet. So I must do something to improve my management of these trees. I don't use any pesticides or herbicides or anything like that. So long before I can harvest any of the peaches, the bugs destroyed the entire harvest. so I need to find a way to protect my fruit against the bugs, and not using poison to do that. Right, be with you in a moment again. Okay, so here I am in one of the furthest corners of our property, and what we have here in front of us is the pile of horse manure. I just make a big pile of horse manure here, and in a year, 2 years time, I'm going to collect it and use it as organic matter in my garden. So this is the very passive and very unscientific method of turning horse manure into compost. Okay, so I'm approaching my veggie garden, the main area of my veggie garden again, and um, one mention about vermicomposting is that I used to do this 3 bucket system of worm farming, but I decided not to do that anymore. So that was a little bit of difficulty for me. I struggled to keep them alive and so on. So I decided to just move my earthworms, my red wigglers, over here into my compost bins. They flourish here. Um, they multiply very quickly here, so they're very happy, and I just keep them alive in here. It improves the quality of my compost and so on. So what we'd like to do here in our veggie garden is to be as organic as possible. We don't use any chemical fertilizers. We don't use any poison, any form of poison, herbicides, pesticides, and so on. Okay, and we tend to leave nature to do its work a little bit. For example, this tomato plants just came up from last year's crop. We had a section over here that was only tomatoes, and seeds fell here and it came up, so we just left them. Same over there as well, all those plants just came up. All right, but let me show you what we did on purpose. This was not on purpose. These green beans are, as you can see, we have a row here of young green beans, and over here we have a row, in my shade, we have a row of older green beans, and we're already harvesting from this row, as well as here we're also already harvesting from this row of green beans. The reason why we space it like that is to have a continual harvest through the growing season. So when these green beans, which are the oldest, stops producing, on the other end here we will still harvest from these green beans, and the same from the tomatoes. You can see these plants are already big, and as you can see there are a couple of that's the very first tomatoes of this season. So this one is a little bit older. That's this row of tomatoes is older than this row of tomatoes, so we'll start harvesting later on from this one. Right, so on this section we have tomatoes and green beans. Here we have a patch of potatoes, and it looks very nice. Here at the back, there it is, we have some cantaloupes, and here are some of the cantaloupes that is already on these vines. And as I mentioned before, this is green beans that just came up wild. We didn't plant it here, and it just came up like that. Now I'd like to show you this. Here in the corner we have rosemary, and in the other corners as well we have rosemary, and this is also to deter pests and stuff. Right, we have a little bit of young beetroot over here. We have a small patch of older beetroot over here. Here we have a little bit of weeds taking over. I'll talk to you just now about weeds control. And here we have a patch of spinach growing. Over here we have a very nice this trellis, sorry, let me move around. This is our cucumbers, and our cucumbers are doing very well this year. As you can see, we have some nice cucumbers on these trellises. Excellent cucumber crop that we have this year, right? So our strawberries, what we do with our strawberries, we planted one or two plants, I can't remember how much, 2 or 3 seasons ago, and we just let them grow wild. So they propagate on their own, sending out runners, and these runners starts making new plants, and we just leave them until we'll take them out a little bit later on. What I've done here, you see these white flowers. This is carrot flowers, and these carrot flowers become carrot seeds. Let me just, okay, hopefully you can see it on the screen. So we left some of the carrots in the soil so that they can produce seed, that we can harvest the seed later on again. So the seed is almost ready for us to harvest now. These cucumbers are so nice. Over here we have a small patch of carrots, and over there we have a patch of young carrots. Right, so this concrete slabs, now a little bit again on infrastructure. This concrete slabs we're using to build, we're ever expanding to build raised beds. As you can see, there's some concrete slabs. Over there are concrete slabs that we use to build raised beds. In between the walkways we use grass clippings as mulching. So this is for water retention, as well as for weed control, as well as it decomposes, it adds organic matter into the soil. So on these walkways we add this mulching. The soil preparation that we did is especially here in the raised beds, we dug out about a spade depth. We dug it out under the ground surface, dug out the spade depth, added from that slow compost in here, mixed it well enough, and fill it back up. So that was about half soil, half compost, and this is how we prepared most of the soil, especially here in the raised beds. In the sections that we don't have raised beds yet, we just added some compost on top of it and mixed it very well into the soil. Okay, so I believe this is all that. Oh no, I forgot about the stuff on the outside. Let me quickly show you some of through the shade cloth. Here is a row of corn, or if you're from South Africa like I am, maize. And the same thing that we did with the tomatoes and the green beans, we also did with the maize. As you can see, there are a couple of young plants, and over there are young plants as well, so that we can harvest it at different times in the season. And over here there was a couple of pumpkins that just started growing wild. I didn't plant it there. There were some seeds that fell on the ground and I left it. Now it grows on its own. As you can see, there's already one young pumpkin in there. Alright, so this concludes the tour of my garden, what I did and so on. If you have any questions, I appreciate it. Just send it. And I'll make more videos answering your questions and so on. So we've covered the veggie garden, we've covered the fruit trees, we've covered the nut trees, we've covered how I prepare soil for to plant later on. I've covered water and irrigation, as well as the infrastructure. If I covered, I touched on composting and so on, and I touched on soil preparation and mulching. So if there's any questions that you have, um, how that how we do our pollination by hand, for example, or something like that, any questions that you have, you're more than welcome to ask. So please like my channel, please like this or subscribe to my channel, please like this video, share this video, and I'm looking forward to your comments. So please leave your comments. I'd love to read them and reply to them, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so I lied, it wasn't the end of the video. Here is the harvest for today's salad, and I'll quickly go and show you something else before I end this video. Okay, so these are the cantaloupes that I showed you earlier. We just added a little bit of a sling here to support this cantaloupe while it's growing, while it's gaining in weight and so on, so that it doesn't pull down the vine. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next videos. Subscribe and tell your friends about it and ask your questions. Thanks for your time, appreciate that. See you around, and God bless you.